back to that conversation I mentioned to you that we're focusing on this Tuesday morning. It really is harnessing self-care. And for you to understand how to harness, you need to understand what self-care is in the first place. So let's understand this and we're being helped by Alima Nur Mohammed, who is mindfulness coach in outdoor and adventure therapy. Thank you for joining us. And let's just start it off by understanding when we say self-care, what does that really mean?
So self-care is all about just looking after yourself. People get caught up in looking after themselves physically only, but we're not just made of a physical being, we're also made of mental. So self-care also involves looking after your mental health, looking after your emotional health, and your physical health, and people tend to forget that part. So this is what self-care, just in a summary, that's what it's about.
All right. And what about the pandemic? Because it has come with stresses of its own, and as I mentioned earlier, exacerbated some of the issues that we were dealing on a daily. What have you learned about self-care in this season?
My goodness, the pandemic has really brought up a lot of issues. You know, pandemic has played around with our mind. We worry about the future. We're constantly in that state of mind. What is going to happen tomorrow? We don't know. What it has brought about is that, you know what, leave the future where it is, look after the now, because the now is what matters. And in the now is when you can start looking after yourself physically. In the now is when you can start looking after yourself mentally. And that is what's going to take you to be able to meet this future, meet this pandemic-infested world, once you focus on the now.
Okay, so we're talking about self-care being so critical to your health and well-being overall. Talk about how it actually translates to this.
So one of the things that people do is they're stuck, completely stuck. It's like, what do I do? How do I look after myself in this? I can't even get out of the house. Of course, keeping all the rules and regulations in place. Go out and really just be with yourself outside. So one of the things that I do, I want to share, is go out in nature. Nature is somewhere where you can just be free, you can connect to yourself. Leave your phones aside. People forget that. It's like, I want to take my phone everywhere I go. But leave your phone aside, because when you're out in nature, you can connect without needing to look at the phones all the time. You listen to the sounds around you. You feel the sounds around you. Self-care is about awakening all your senses. Look around, take the beauty around you. Listen to the sounds of the birds, listen to the sounds of the trees, feel the breeze, smell the outdoors. All that awakens who you are, all that awakens the power within, and it makes you more aware. It makes you more aware of the present moment. And that is where you can now make decisions and choices on how you want to look after yourself.
Now, that sounds very outdoor. There's a time we couldn't even leave our houses, you know, and we had to find what needs to work within the confines of our four walls in our houses. So how do you ensure that it doesn't matter where you're at, you can always find something that actually feeds or edifies your soul, so to speak?
So one of the things I like to do is just slow down. We're constantly in this mode of doing. Why don't we allow ourselves to slow down? So we stop for a moment, take a breath, notice that breath, observe the emotions that are playing around in your mind, observe the feelings that are playing around in your body. Once you do that and once you step back, then you can proceed with intention. You can say, okay, you know what? Remember that these emotions that we're feeling are temporary. Everything is temporary. Your anger will not stay with you. Your frustration will not stay with you. With that knowledge, we can move forward. So it's about stopping, taking a breath, observing, and then proceeding.
Now, you mentioned that there are different facets of self-care. So we're talking about the mental, we're talking about the physical, the spiritual, the emotional. Take us through these pillars. Let's start off with the physical, because I think if there's a time or a season, this has been actually underscored to be very critical, is this season. Talk about how we can take care of that.
So physical, one of the things, you know, having stayed at home, people, you know, couldn't go outside and hit the gym, right? So physical aspects is really looking after what you're eating as well. Committing to yourself. Commitment is huge. Commit to yourself and spend it even 5 or 10 minutes, even if you have to break it down throughout the day, to add that physical activity in your space. Whether it's a small workout at home, lots of videos are available online. Whether it's just putting on a track of, you know, of your favorite dance track and just really just letting it out and dancing away. or just kind of sitting by yourself and really just focusing on your body. That's all a part of your physical harnessing. Your emotional harnessing and mental harnessing comes with, again, stopping, recognizing what you're feeling. I like to call it, it's known as the rain meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So recognize what you're feeling, accept what you're feeling, and then investigate with kindness. Self-care involves a lot of kindness to yourself. First, it begins with you. Investigate these emotions of anger. Where have they come from? What is it about? What has really put me into this space? What has really put me in this frame of mind? And then allow that anger to naturally be there. Become aware of it. Because what we tend to do is, when we feel these emotions, we want to push them away. The more you push, the more it stays. What you resist persists, right?
Yes.
So when you allow it, in fact, what I like to share with my clients is, anger has come. What does anger look like to you? What color is anger? What texture is anger? Invite anger for a cup of tea.
Uh-huh.
And then have a conversation. That's where the investigation with kindness comes in. Have a conversation with anger and say, why are you here? What is it that you're trying to tell me? Because there's always something. Your emotions come up because something has triggered you. Investigate, and then just let anger be here for as long as it needs to be, and it will fade away.
Mm-hmm.
That is how you work with your mental well-being. That is how you work with your emotional well-being.
All right, you touch
Yeah.
on something that most people do not have the courage to do, is accepting the feelings you have, and not even that, even allowing yourself to feel them, because at times it feels overwhelming. What do you do when it feels like it's too much?
You stop. You literally stop. You slow down, because what tends to happen is when you're getting all those feelings, you want to hide. You want to run away from those feelings by doing something else, never acknowledging the feelings. Once you slow down, you stop, take a breath. We have one of the most powerful tools available to us. Every single person on this planet has it. It's breath. Take a breath. You've heard, whenever you're doing an activity, even athletes, when they're told, slow down, take a breath, take a breath. What does that mean? It means the breath kind of helps you align, it balances you, and it helps you recenter. Once you've taken a breath, it puts you in a position where you can pull yourself out of the emotion and just observe it. So now you're looking at it from an outsider, as opposed to being anger. So we tend to identify ourselves with our emotions. I am angry. I'm not angry. I'm having feelings of anger. The moment you disidentify yourself from that, you can now proceed with the next step of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And if you cannot be able to perhaps deal with whatever it is,
Yes.
is this where now perhaps you can even ask for help,
Absolutely.
reach out to therapists, counseling perhaps?
100%. A lot of people actually get into this space once they understand, because it does get overwhelming. This is the best time to reach out, and there's nothing wrong. There is absolutely, there's a stigma against, oh my God, I can't reach out. People will think there's something wrong with me. There is nothing wrong. If you need help, get it. There's so many people out there who are willing to help people, who have gone through this. This is the thing. People have gone through this. They have come out of it. So you know that there is hope. Know that, you know what? I can come out of this. You're not the only one who's going through this. I can come out of it, and there are people here who are going to help me to come out of it.
Uh-huh. All right. So at this point, let me remind you the question of the day to you. How or what does self-care mean to you? What is this that you do to ensure that you harness your own self-care? Talk to us. That hashtag is a new normal. And remember, you can also call in and give us your comments and, of course, your suggestions on the same. All right, so we have one here from Basil who says, me prioritizing myself in everything, spoiling myself with the new stuff, eating healthy, keeping fit, eliminating the negative energy. Basil, thank you for sharing and well done. Another here from Mark Emojong who says, putting myself first in everything. Wow, thank you, Mark. Wataga says, maintaining a calm and clear mind. Thank you, Wataga. The feedback from another screen, that's why you call me sitting down. But here's the thing. We all clearly understand self-care is important, but it looks different for different people, Alima. And you've had those that are saying, putting myself first. What does that mean? Because at times that is misinterpreted as selfish.
Yes, yes. And yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because putting myself first means fill your cup first. Because you're looking after families, maybe you're at work, you have a team that you're looking after, maybe you have children that you're looking after. Now, if your own battery is not charged, how are you going to look after everybody else? So putting yourself first means recharging your battery, and it's okay to do that. You're not being selfish, because selfishness, I think, comes from also showing unkindness to somebody else because for your own good. When it comes to self-care, you're looking after yourself so that you can then look after everybody else, especially for moms, for example. I use that example because I'm a mom. And if I didn't look after myself, looking after my daughter would be extremely difficult because she's full of energy. So as moms, or even as, you know, even if you're not a mom, looking after yourself is number one, nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
And when you talk about looking after yourself, what are you looking at? Okay, fine. Pouring into your cup, define that.
Okay, that's different for everybody.
Yes.
So for me, for example, is one of the things I like to do is go out in nature. That re-energizes me completely. For some people, I know a spa. They enjoy going to the spa. I like to also get up early in the morning and meditate, because throughout the day, there is so much stimulus. That early hour of the morning gives me time to just be with me, sit with a calm mind, and just watch and observe my thoughts, connect with my body. That's a massive form of self-care for me. You can do yoga. You can just take a walk, listen to music. It's literally what makes you feel good. Does sitting and having, you know, a scoop of ice cream make you feel good? Yes, go ahead. Don't feel guilty when you're having that scoop of ice cream. A lot of people end up doing that.
Yes.
Self-care is about also letting go of the guilt. It's about kindness, really showing kindness to who you are. Just as much as you would show kindness to the people that you love, we forget about ourselves.
It's interesting that we keep saying showing kindness to yourself. You would think you'd be the first person you think about. What's this trap that we fall into?
I think we just forget. We literally just forget, because we want to give, we want to help others so much that we forget to help ourselves. And because of our own life experiences, we suddenly put ourselves in a place where we question some of the choices that we've made, and we beat ourselves up over those choices. You know, what if I had done this? Or what if I didn't leave him? Or I could have done this. But when your friend tells you all this, you're like, but that's okay. It's for, you know, it's the best thing that ever happened to you. Or you'll find something else. You'll find a new job. You'll fall into the best career of your life. But when it comes to you, constantly beating yourself up over it. And that is where you must allow yourself some kindness. Bring that kindness so that you're not beating yourself up, because you are also human.
Very true. Now, there's something else that there's a Stella here who says, for me, self-care means that I am okay with saying no when I cannot. Talk about the power of saying no.
Yes, boundaries.
Yeah.
I love that. We want to give so much because we worry about what people will think about us. So we say yes without really wanting to do it, but we say yes because we want to give. You don't want to disappoint the other person. You don't want to let the other person down. Maybe you've never said no to this person before, but the task they're asking you this time is so big and you're afraid. And yet when you say no, when you put your boundaries, it's really showing yourself that respect. And know that that person will actually probably understand why you're saying no. We make all these assumptions in our minds that, oh my God, if I say no, they're going to think less of me. But try it. Say no and explain why you're saying no. And that person will be like, oh, okay, that's okay. I'll go find somebody else to help me with this. So it's not really, we always think it's to do with us. We take it personally when it's not.
All right. And boundaries also do not necessarily have to do with telling somebody no. It's saying or allowing yourself to let go of some tasks that you can't handle at the time, right?
Yes, Yes. Boundaries are all about really just, you know, we stretch our boundaries, and sometimes when we stretch them too much, we get burnt out. So knowing and understanding your boundaries is also very important, because that also helps look after yourself.
All right. And even as we think about this, most often than not, people think, especially going into the holidays, it's the happiest time of the year.
Yeah.
You are mingling and bonding with your family members, but that in itself can leave you tapped out.
Absolutely.
Talk about this and the importance of being self-aware.
So, as you go into this festive season, you kind of let go suddenly, because you want to do this, and especially after this 2 years of pandemic, you want to go crazy, you want to go out there, but then you forget that, you know what, this is still a moment for you to look after yourself. Somebody said putting myself first. Even in the festive season, put yourself first. Give the gift of becoming aware of yourself first during this festive season. I think that would be a great gift to give yourself. As a family, when you're together, bring that awareness of being together, because again, the pandemic has put us in such a state of mind that we have experienced all sorts of emotion. This is a good time to come with your family, put everything aside, put yourself first with your family, and enjoy this time. And really, really just be in the moment. That's what I like to say.
And perhaps what should we do come January when everyone else goes back to their business, you're left on your own? What would be the best thing to do to ensure that you keep this energy going for the year?
I think one of the things that we should commit to, you know, for 2022 is make a commitment to yourself. Even if it's literally 1 minute a day, spend that 1 minute by yourself. Maybe it could be first thing in the morning, in the middle of the day, or even at night. Spend that 1 minute just by yourself, completely unplugged from the whole world. Unplugged from your phone, unplugged from your family. There's nothing wrong with that. And take that time for yourself. And the more you do that, the more you'll see that that 1 minute will grow into 2, into 5, into 10. And suddenly that is what you're going to take with you into the new year, because that space will give you clarity. That space will help you make choices that are more empowering to you. So commitment, I think people should take that self-care commitment with them into the new year.
All right. Now, let's go to the how-to.
Yes.
Now, first of all, I'd like us to clarify the difference between self-care and self-indulgence.
Okay. Self-indulgence, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but maybe again with limits.
Yes.
You know, I love my cakes, so that I would say would be, you know, a self-indulgence, but again, limit that. Self-care, one of the things that I find with self-care is be authentic to yourself. Remove the layers of pretending to be who you're not. Because once you find that authenticity with yourself, you can be real, you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, and that will lead you to understanding who you are. Because, for example, let's say if, for me, authenticity comes from my connection to the outdoors. If I had to hide that, I wouldn't be who I am. I would be doing things pretending to be somebody else. Authenticity will start to lead to a lot of self-care practices.
And authenticity in this case is being aware of what works for you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Look at the times in your life when you've been the most happiest. Look at the times of your life when you've been the most free. When were the times when you felt just absolute and completely freedom? When you find those moments, it could be when you were maybe spending time with old people, for example. That would be a part of you where it tells you, you know what? That's a part of me where I like to be with people, and not just any people, elderly people, because when I'm with them, I feel real, I feel myself. Again, for me, I keep bringing myself up,
Yes.
but authenticity was every time I had to look back in my life. My highs were when I was climbing a mountain or jumping out of a plane. That freedom, I've managed to bring it into the work that I do. So authenticity is one of the things I would really say. Discover who you are.
Okay, now let's go back to self-indulgence. And this, I know, is something that perhaps people would say, okay, fine, it's part of self-care, but there has to be a limit to it because
Absolutely.
somebody might be thinking, when I have that piece of cake, I'm at a peace, I'm in heaven. But then again, doing it every day becomes counterproductive.
Exactly.
Okay, so talk about some of these habits that might look good in the moment, but done too much can actually be counterproductive, some of them.
Okay, so let's take the cake example. When you want to indulge in that cake, first of all, go in it with knowing that, you know what, I'm going to eat this and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Do not feel guilty. Enjoy every bite. Take every bite and know that, you know what, I'm going to make the most of it right now, and then, again, become aware of not wanting to repeat that on a day-to-day basis, because like you said, it's going to be counterproductive.
Yeah.
You might have to hit the gym more than, you know, once a day.
Yeah.
So awareness is key, becoming very conscious about what you're doing. And when you are self-indulging, whether it is a cake or whether it is just kind of letting loose one night with your friends, do it without guilt. Because when you do that, let's say you finish that piece of cake, and then you're just, you know, a few hours later, you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't had this, and you beat yourself up over it, again, that becomes counterproductive. Because now you're mentally beating yourself up. You're like, why did you have this cake? And then your inner critic wakes up and says, you'll never lose weight because you had this cake. It's one piece of cake. It's okay. Just don't do it every day. And know it, that awareness is also key.
Okay, so do it within reason.
Yes.
Okay, so I came across categories of self-care. There was temporary and enduring.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What does temporary self-care mean or look like?
Temporary self-care would be something where you're doing just once in a while. You know, you've decided, you know what, I think I need to look after myself, and you've gone to the gym for 3 months, and then suddenly you've just fallen out. You've decided, okay, it's not really working, and then you kind of go back to your habits. Self-care needs to become a lifestyle. It's something that you must do every day. And that is where now I think we come to the second part of it, where it's enduring. You do it every single day. Look after yourself every single day. You're looking after your home every single day. You're looking after the project that you've been given out every single day. You're looking after your kids. You're looking after your parents. It's time to look after yourself every single day. In that way, you're creating a lifestyle. It becomes a part of it, and it's becomes as important as brushing your teeth every day. Right?
And do you have scheduled moments where you can actually practice self-care, or when you feel the need to stop and take care of it?
So I think for people who are starting off, schedule the moments so that it can become a part of it. It can become a part of your lifestyle. Because for people who are not used to the self-care, when they feel like it might be 3 days later. So if you schedule yourself and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to spend 3 minutes as soon as I wake up just by myself. Or I'm going to spend 5 minutes before bedtime. Once that gets ingrained, then you can start to spread. It will just come automatically because it's a part of you. Because you also start to feel better about yourself. You start to feel good about yourself. And you're like, you know what? In the middle of the day, I'm just going to stop and take a break. Because I want to. I want to recharge. Do that once you have ingrained it as a habit.
And that means if life was to take over, you got a little bit busy. And perhaps the scheduled time came and passed.
Yes.
And you've not been able to achieve what you need to.
Yes.
How do you recoup?
So one of the things that, again, I share with my clients is if you have to put a sticky note in front of you. Put some reminders on the phone. And it's literally 30 seconds of stopping and taking a breath. So if you're going from meeting to meeting, let's talk about a busy schedule.
Yeah.
You're going from one meeting to another meeting. That in-between break from one meeting to another, that can just be a self-care moment where you're mindfully now walking from A to B. So as you're walking, you're not walking with your phone. Phones are one of the things that you put aside when you don't need to be on the phone. Just put it aside. You don't need to be scrolling through social media. Put it aside and spend that time on yourself. Mindful walking means really just becoming aware. How are your feet going, as you're walking? Feel the weight of your feet on the ground. Notice your toes in your feet. When you're seated in a meeting, like even right now,
Yeah.
notice your back against the chair. Notice your feet on the ground. Notice your fingers, the way they're sitting on the side of the chair. If you can even notice your hair on your shoulder. That is all about bringing that awareness. And the more you do it, you're actually rewiring your brain to remember. It's creating new pathways. Even these subtle, what we just did right now, we created some new pathways in your brain. And the more you do it, you're strengthening that, and it's becoming a part of you.
Interesting. And in a world that is busy, we're moving from one thing to another. We're told, find a way to quieten the noise around you. This can be very difficult.
It is very difficult.
What do you suggest?
I suggest take a walk outside. Go out in nature. It's easier than me telling you sit for a meditation for half an hour.
Okay, in the case for us who are within a concrete jungle,
Yes.
what do you do?
In your case, slow down. Just slow down, put everything away. And I keep saying, even if it's 1 minute, do that. Insert those 1-minute breaks in your day. When your phone goes off as an alarm, don't just look at it and put it away. Take that moment to slow down. There's an acronym called STOP, where, again, I talked about it earlier. S stands for literally stop. Stop everything you're doing. T stands for take a breath. So take that moment, breathe in and out. And then O is for observe. Just observe. Observe what's going on in your body right now. Observe what's going on in your mind right now. And then P is for proceed. So take the next step with intention. See, okay, you know what? I was going too fast. I was moving. I didn't have a chance to really even grab a cup of coffee. I haven't eaten for like 6 hours. And yet, we do this to ourselves. When we slow down and allow ourselves to just grab that bite, that we needed, the other person will not mind. A lot of the times, the other people they're just going with what you're doing. You're the one who's putting that stress on yourself. So slow down, take a breath, observe, and then proceed.
But even as we do that, and I think this needs to really be underscored, we're talking about intention.
Yes.
All right. So if you are intentional about what you eat, let's talk about what it results to.
Okay.
Nutrition.
Yes.
What does it result to?
So when you're intentional about what you eat, I like to call it's called mindful eating. Look at your plate. See what's on your plate. And then, I wish we had something here. I would do an actual experiment. Let's say you're having some fruit, or even if it's a piece of cake. Just look at it, look at the texture. And then when you have it in your mouth, really taste it. Feel how it feels when you're biting into it. And just play around with it. And then swallow. And then take the next bite. Again, look at it. See where it's come from. If we look at an orange, that orange didn't just end up in your plate. It was at the supermarket first. How did it get to the supermarket? Somebody actually transported it there. Before it was transported, it was picked. Before it was picked, it was planted. These are all, again, creating that awareness, putting that intention of becoming present in the moment. And when you do that, you realize you won't finish that bag of chips in 5 minutes. Sometimes when I started this exercise, I remember having that bag of chips and being intentional with it. And I put it away because, first of all, it was really loud in my head as I was chewing. And it helped me slow down completely. I put it away and I said, okay, you know what? I don't really need to finish this bag of chips right now. Doesn't mean I don't eat it, but now I've slowed down a lot more. And I do enjoy it.
Okay, interesting. Now it makes you more self-aware and also kind of gives you the breaks if you're struggling with self-governance when it comes to some things. When it comes to the physical activity, fitness is also part and parcel of self-care.
Absolutely.
The value of the same.
Fitness helps you, again, it releases all the toxins that are, or all that energy that you've not been able to get out, because your physical body, your mental state of mind are all interlinked. Sometimes whatever you've gone through work, if it's been a tough day at work, it's put a lot of strain on your brain. Going out, maybe going to the gym, even if you're not a gym person, go for a walk. run, stretch at home, put on a YouTube video and do some exercises. Let that energy out. Once you do that, you automatically, it's all hormonal, you automatically feel better, and from there you can now take the next step. That's the value of physical exercise.
Okay, and now we're talking about the mental self-care. This, I think, is the most crucial, because if that's intact, then you have the ability to actually make choices for the rest of the other facets. Talk about this.
Mental, when you start to live in your being, when you start to become more aware, the sense of clarity that starts to show up in your mind actually shows you that, you know what, if I choose A, this is what's going to happen. If I choose B, this is what's going to happen. The choices that show up in your mind become so clear. And in that state of mind, in that power, you can see the consequences of your choice. Be brave enough to pick the choice that is more empowering to you, so that as you move through life, you are living the life that you want. You're not stuck doing something you don't want to be doing. We're always in that state of mind where I don't have a choice about the situation. You do. You may not have a choice to change the situation, but you can relate to it differently. You can pick the emotion that you want to pick. You can actually choose your emotion. You know what? I'm going to feel relieved with whatever it is that happened. And you do that. You practice that over and over and over again. You practice that by being fully present. You practice that by mindful awareness. That is how you do it.
Somebody had mentioned early in the feedback we read out that I have learned to keep calm and silent.
Yes.
That, I think, is a gift in the world we're living in. So, for example, you're at the workplace, your boss is coming down on you hard, and every part of you just wants to lash out or be angry about the situation. How do you practice that? Because at that point, I think it comes in handy.
So at that point, I mean, I'm hoping that you've already started the practice. After today, everybody watching should start a practice, because it gets ingrained. So when your boss is yelling at you, in that moment, just take it as it's coming. And you're not really you're not shying out from what you want to share. You're just taking it in, allowing yourself to pull yourself from those emotions that you're feeling towards your boss. The moment you pull yourself from those emotions, you can then decide, how do I want to handle this? Because you can go through a shouting match back and forth, not just with your boss, but even with your spouse at home. It can go back and forth, it can get nasty. What you need to do is step back and just say, you know what, I'm going to come back to the situation when I am calm. Step back, observe, calm yourself down, and then go back into the situation and speak to your boss and say, I don't think that was right. You have put me down in front of my colleagues, for example. I have respect for you. I think you need to have respect for me. Because in that shouting match, a lot can go wrong. So when you start to cultivate this habit of self-care, you're cultivating this awareness, this real awareness of who you are, your feelings, your emotions, and that is what can help you take the next steps.
And helps with self-control, I guess.
Yes, it does.
Oh, wow.
It's known as self-regulation. You are able to regulate your own emotions.
All right. And speaking about emotions, we have Anita who says, self-care for me means driving home, sitting in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I can face my 2 children.
Fantastic.
Do you relate?
I relate. I definitely relate, because it can get overwhelming. Self-care is about giving yourself that time. We have 24 hours in a day, a lot of which is used up for everything else other than ourselves. So yes, if it means you're going to sit in the car for 20 minutes by yourself, if it means you're going to go to the bathroom and lock yourself up in there for 5 minutes, do it. It's important. Do it and spend that time for yourself. Again, put the phone away. So even if you're in the car for 20 minutes, to get that maximum advantage of self-care, put the phone away and just look around. Just observe. Take the beauty of the moment. Take life as it's happening. We forget to live in our bodies. We're so constantly caught up in our heads that we forget to actually experience our lives.
Very well said. And even as we do that, talk about the importance, and I think you'd mentioned this. At times you feel guilty, especially for the parents or mothers in this case, where you're in that car, but in your head you're telling yourself, I've not seen them the whole day, but here I am locked up in the car just because I can't handle right now. It's been a hard day at work. Talk about regulating that guilt, which is normal, I guess, depending on your responsibilities in life.
So those emotions, they're all thoughts. Everything in your mind is a thought. What you will start to cultivate is pulling yourself from those, unhooking yourself from those thoughts, and take them for what they are. They are thoughts. So right now, if I'm sitting in the car feeling guilty that I should go inside, I haven't seen my kids all day, they're probably missing me. If you just step away from that just for a moment and say, you know what? It's okay for me to be sitting here. So this is now where you bring in self-compassion. It's okay for me to be sitting here for a few minutes, because if I can do this, then I can go inside much happier, as opposed to going inside and being all over the place, still with those thoughts in my mind. I want to go inside and be with a clear mind so I can welcome my kids with a lot more love than I would have been able to give them. When you let go of the guilt, you're now going in very neutral, you're not going in with any previous emotions from where you've just come from. So if you've come from work and it's been a stressful day at work, but you're dying to see your kids, you go straight inside. You're going to take those emotions from work and it's going to come out on your kids at some point. But if you've allowed yourself to be in the car and just take some downtime, I guarantee your experience with your kid will be completely different.
And this is not only true for parents, because there are some people who say, you know what? I disappeared on you because I wasn't in a good mental health space.
Yeah.
Talk about this, and also just reminding yourself it's okay to pull back.
Absolutely. The key here is to listen to yourself. You will have something that tells you, just take a break. Sometimes you'll be like, but I can't. How do I do this? Find a way. Even if it means, actually, even for me, sometimes I struggle because I have a 3-year-old. How do I take a break? I take her to the forest. She will run around, and for me, that's a complete grounding. So for people who are struggling with that, let go of the guilt, take a break, take as long as you need. Listen to yourself, because your emotions will tell you. Your emotions, your body sensations are all alarm systems that tell you, listen, you need to slow down. Listen, you need to pay attention to me so that I can tell you what is wrong. So listen to yourself a lot more and do what needs to be done.
And speaking of which, if you do not listen to yourself, if you keep pushing back the feelings that you need to come face to face, and all the things we've touched on that are critical in harnessing self-care, what are the consequences?
Ooh, burnout. You'll be completely burnt out. You won't be able to show up the way you want to show up. Stress. Stress is going to be one of the biggest killers of people. People live in stress. Stress, now in today's world, people say, well, stress is a part of life. Stress is not a part of life. Stress is the result of what we're constantly thinking. Stress is the result of our anxiety or our depression. Those are not a part of who we are. We are pure. We are actually love. So when we let go, when we're able to let go of all that, we come back to a point where we can connect to ourselves. And that's where we want to be. Being burnt out is not normal. Being stressed is not normal. And there are ways. So when you reach burnout, go get the help. It's okay. Get the help. And then commit to yourself that, you know what, I'm not going to take myself there again. I'm going to sit and become more aware about who I am, and I'm going to practice this on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, and I have Melissa who is saying, I would love to indulge in the pedicures, manicures, massages and all that, but I cannot afford it. And for me, that is what self-care is.
Yeah.
Is that really what we're talking about? Fine, this could be what it means to her.
Yes.
But we need to also be cognizant. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to cost you anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A pedicure, manicure is great, but it's also temporary. When you do self-care continuously, you're harnessing that feel-good feeling almost on a permanent basis, because it's now a mindset. It's now something that you're feeling in your heart, so that even if I don't get a petty menu one day, I'm okay with it. I'm not saying don't go for it, but it can be costly. Self-care is not really, you don't need to spend anything. It's literally about finding yourself, finding who you are, being true to yourself, and looking after yourself just the way you would look after a loved one.
And now that you are good with the outdoor and, indoor self-care, what exactly should we look out for, perhaps, that is within reach?
One of the things I would say, and I'm sure I've mentioned it earlier, is schedule it in. When you wake up in the morning, don't get into your whole full-on routine. Wake up, take 5 minutes to yourself. Look outside the window. Connect to your senses. Let me give you that exercise. Take 5 minutes. Notice 5 things around you. What do you see? Look at something maybe you've never seen before. Maybe you've never noticed about. It might be the color of your carpet. Maybe it's that extra brown that you've never noticed before. Increase that awareness. Then notice 4 things that you can hear. What are 4 distinct sounds around you? Is it the AC? Is it the person breathing over there? Is it your movement when you did this? Right? 3 things that you can feel. The feel of your pants, the feel of your shoe, the feel of my hair. 2 things that you can smell. What are the smells around you? And then 1 thing you can taste. It could be even the taste of nothing. But that small exercise already grounds you. As soon as you do that exercise, you are now connected. You've now returned to the moment, and you can take the next step. That's not even a meditation. That's just really slowing down and falling into your senses. So lose your mind, fall into your senses.
Okay. So are we ever young or too old to start self-care?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You can start from the age of 0, until the day you go to the next world. We're never too old or too young. This can be done at any time. All you need to do is decide, make that decision, and commit. That's what you need to do.
Okay, and even as we bring this to a close, the bottom line to self-care, just reiterate that even as we close.
Self-care is about showing kindness to yourself and listening to your own emotions, acknowledging, accepting, and letting them be, looking after everything. All emotions belong, whether it's anger, frustration, joy, happiness. They're all a part of who you are. Let them belong, and then they will go where they need to go.
Very well said, Alima Nur Mohammed, mindfulness coach in outdoor and adventure therapy. Thank you.
Thank you so
for
much.
this. I'm sure it goes a long way to help us harness our own self-care into the new year and even debrief the year that has been, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So I hope you walk away with some tidbits on how to ensure you can cater for your self-care into the new year. And now we're about to take another short break. When we come back, we will shift gears and focus on our environment. I'll let you know about that in a moment.